Te Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vesaya Bhutale Vimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachorine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur-Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, समस्त गौर भक्तवृंद की जय, जय श्री प्रभुपाद की जय. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Bhakti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namaham Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Okay, so we're discussing Narad Muni's instructions to Srila Vyasadeva. So, Narad Muni has described the glories of devotional service, 17th verse and the 19th verse especially. And so therefore now in verse number 20, so then Vyasadeva is requesting on Narad Muni himself. He is telling who is Bhagavan. So he told about Bhakti. Bhakti is meant for Bhagavan. So now who is Bhagavan is describing in the 20th verse. idam hi vishwam bhagavani vetaro yato jagatsthana nirodha sambhavaha tadhi swayam veda bhavanstatapite pradeshamatram bhavata pradarshitam. The Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead is Himself this cosmos, and still He is aloof from it. From Him only has this cosmic manifestation emanated, in Him it rests, and unto Him it enters of annihilation. Your good self knows all about this. I have given only a synopsis. Okay, so this philosophy we have discussed many times. How the Supreme Lord is non-different from the cosmos, non-different from the material worlds. Idam hi vishwam bhagavan ivetaro. And he does all this sthana, nirodha, yataha, sambhava, janmadhyasya yataha. So, a few important points on the purport. A little bit down. Similarly, the part and parcel hands and legs are called the body. But the body as the whole unit is neither the hands nor the legs. Okay, so nice analogy. The material world is the Lord, but the Lord is not the material world. So similarly, hand is also the body, but body is not the hand. The Lord is the transcendental form of eternity, cognition and beauty, and thus the creation of the energy of the Lord appears to be partially eternal, full of knowledge and beautiful also. The captivated conditioned souls under the influence of the external energy Maya are therefore trapped in the network of material. So because the material world also is coming from the Lord, so therefore the material world also looks beautiful, the material world also seems to be eternal and full of knowledge. So because it's coming from the Lord, so and that's how the conditioned entities get captivated. They accept this as all in all, for they have no information of the Lord, who is the primeval cause. Nor have they information that the parts and parcels of the body, when detached from the whole body, are no longer the same hand or leg when attached to the body. Similarly, a godless civilization detached from the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of God is just like a detached hand or leg. Okay, you see, Prabhupada used a lot of analogies to explain the concepts, so we should know all these analogies. So if we know these analogies, then we don't have to concoct some new analogies. Such parts and parcels may appear like hands and legs, but they have no efficiency. The devotee of the Lord Srila Vyasadeva knows this very well. He is further advised by Srila Narada to expand the idea so that the entrapped conditioned souls may take lessons from him to understand the Supreme Lord of Supreme Cause.
The hands and legs are the part of the body, no?
Correct.
They are not the body. And similarly, the body has hands and legs. So the analogy I didn't actually understood how it can be called as body. It's a part of the body, it's not body.
That is true.
Then what is this analogy? It's the body, but the body as the whole is neither the
You read it once again.
Similarly, the part and parcel, hands and legs are called the body, but the body as the whole unit is neither the hands nor the legs. That is true for the first half also. The part and parcel of the hands and legs are called the part of the body. I mean,
Somebody wants to explain? Okay, Sundaram Guru?
Mike.
Somebody's leg is injured, and then he says that my body is injured. That is same only. So whether he says my body is injured and my leg is injured, that is same only. So in that sense, leg is body.
Correct.
And what about the second
But the entire body is not the leg.
So another, I had heard this one example that somebody goes in the hospital and then he is in the bathroom of that hospital,
Mm.
and somebody calls him, where are you? He says that I am in hospital. He doesn't say that I am in bathroom,
Hmm.
because he identifies that he is that. So like,
Mhm. That's something. But then that's a simple point. So the hand is also, hand can be also called body because it's part of the body.
That is not a
But that's not the whole body. And then in the last paragraph, Prabhupada writes that the human being may create a small, playful Sputnik and may throw it into outer space, but that does not mean that it can create a planet like the Earth or Moon and float it in the air as the Lord does. Men with a poor fund of knowledge claim to be equal to the Lord. They are never equal to the Lord. This is never to be. The human being, after attaining complete perfection, may achieve a large percentage of the qualities of the Lord, say up to 78%. But it is never possible to surpass the Lord or to become equal with Him. In a diseased condition only, the foolish being claims to be one with the Lord and thus becomes misled by the illusory energy. The misguided living beings, therefore, must accept the supremacy of the Lord, agree to render loving service to Him. For this they have been created. Without this, there cannot be any peace or tranquility in the world. Srila Vyasdev is advised by Sri Narada to expand this idea in the Bhagavatam. In the Bhagavad Gita, also the same idea is explained: surrender fully unto the lotus feet of the Lord. That is the only business of the perfect human being. So then, in the next verses, is again telling Vyasadeva that you already know all this. Tvam atmanatmanam avyayamogdrik parasya pumsa paramatmana kalam ajam prajatam jagata shivayatan mahanubhava yutayo vidyanyatam. Your goodness is perfect vision. You yourself can know the supersoul personality of Godhead because you are present as the plenary portion of the Lord. Although you are birthless, you have appeared on this earth for the well-being of all people. Please therefore describe the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna more vividly. Okay, so Natma is telling Vyasadeva, actually you don't require Guru because you yourself are
plainly proceed the Lord.
Yes, you yourself are Pumsa Paramatmanaha Kalam. You're a plenary part of the Supreme Lord. So it's not that you require instruction from someone. You know everything, so you describe all this more vividly, more in detail. As Prabhupada writes, Srila Vyasdev is the empowered plenary portion, incarnation of the personality of God, Sri Krishna. He descended by His costless mercy to deliver the fallen souls in the material worlds. Further down he says, although formally Sri Narada is his spiritual master, Srila Vyasadeva is not at all dependent on a spiritual master because in essence he is the spiritual master of everyone else. But because he is doing the work of an acharya, he has taught us by his own conduct that one must have a spiritual master even though he be God himself. And then he says, Lord Sri Krishna, Lord Sri Ram, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all of them accepted spiritual master. So, and then finally the last verse of this section, 22. Idam hi pumsas tapasa shrutasya va shvishtasya suktasya cha buddhi dattayo avichuto artha kavidhi nirupito yaduttama shloka gunanuvarnanam. So he's telling him, so if you describe the glories of the Supreme Lord, then you will get the fruit of all your tapasya, learning. For all that you will get your fruits. Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerity, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of the hymns and charity, culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord who is defined in choice poetry. Now, Prabhupada used this verse quite often for a specific purpose. So please read the second paragraph of the purport.
दिया है पीछे
So today we'll start from the end time.
हाँ पीछे दिया है
The end.
When advancement of knowledge is applied in the service of the Lord, the whole process becomes absolute. The personality of Godhead and his transcendental name, fame, glory, etc., are all non-different from him. Therefore, all the sages and the devotees of the Lord have recommended that the subject matter of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, and all other branches of knowledge should be wholly and solely applied in the service of the Lord. Art, literature, poetry, painting, etc. may be used in glorifying the Lord. The fiction writers, poets, and celebrated literatures are generally engaged in writing of sensuous subjects, but if they turn towards the service of the Lord, they can describe the transcendental pastime of the Lord. Valmiki was a great poet, and similarly Vyasadeva is a great writer, and both of them have absolutely engaged themselves in delineating the transcendental activities of the Lord, and by doing so have become immortal. Similarly, science and philosophy also should be applied in the service of the Lord. There is no use presenting dry speculative theories for sense gratification. Philosophy and science should be engaged to establish the glory of the Lord. In advanced people are eager to understand the absolute truth through the medium of science, and therefore a great scientist should endeavor to prove the existence of the Lord on a scientific basis. Similarly, philosophical speculation should be utilized to establish the supreme truth as sentient and all-powerful. Similarly, all other branches of knowledge should always be engaged in the service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, also the same is affirmed. All knowledge not engaged in the service of the Lord is but a nuisance. Real realization of advanced knowledge is to establish the glories of the Lord, and that is the real import. Science, art, philosophy, and all similar activities engaged in service of the Lord are all factually Hari Kirtan, or glorification of the Lord.
So everything can be used in the service of the Lord. Because everything is coming, therefore, at the end of the first paragraph, Prabhupada writes, nothing is therefore different from him, but at the same time, the Lord is always different from them. So you see the same Siddhanta again and again. So the whole world is different from the Lord, but at the same time, it's non-different also. So therefore, ultimately everything is coming from the Lord, so everything can be used in the Lord's service. So therefore here Narada Muni is telling Vyasadeva, so if you glorify the Lord with your writing, then you will get the result of all the fruit of all your tapasya and study of the Vedas and sacrifice. You'll get the ultimate fruit of all that. So therefore, when advancement of knowledge is applied in the service of the Lord, the whole process becomes absolute. So Prabhupada used this verse very often to indicate this point, that all the sages and devotees of the Lord have recommended that subject matter of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, and all other branches of knowledge should be wholly and solely applied in the service of the Lord. So Prabhupada would say very often. So if you're an engineer, use your engineering in Krishna's service. If you're a poet, you can use that poetry in Krishna's service. If you're a writer, use that in Krishna's service. If you're a scientist, then through your science you can show that how Krishna is the best scientist. So in this way everything can be used. Therefore Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, scientific knowledge engaged in the service of the Lord and all similar activities are all factually Hari Kirtan, or glorification of the Lord. So anything engaged in the service of the Lord is actually Kirtan. We discussed this point yesterday. So now, in order to establish the glory of devotional service and the potency, the effect of devotional service, Narada Muni is giving his own example, his own story to show the glory of your devotional service. So now from the next verse begins his story. पुरातीत भवे भवं मुने दास्यास्तु कस्यश्चन वेदवादिनां निरूपितो बालक एव योगिनां शुश्रूषणे प्रावृषि निर्विवक्षिताम्. O Muni, in the last millennium I was born as the son of a certain maidservant engaged in the service of Brahmanas who were following the principles of Vedanta. When they were living together during the 4 months of the rainy season, I was engaged in their personal service. So most of us are aware of this story, correct? I'm sure you've heard and spoken many times the story of Narad Muni. Prabhupada begins his purport by saying, the wonder of an atmosphere surcharged with devotional service to the Lord is briefly described here in Bhashri Narad Muni. Interesting statement, isn't it? The wonder of an atmosphere surcharged with devotional service. So if the atmosphere is surcharged with devotional service, then there are these miraculous effects. He was not properly educated. He was son of the most insignificant parentage. Still, because his complete energy was engaged in the service of the Lord, he became an immortal sage. Such is the powerful action of devotional service. So this is the Siddhanta that Narad Muni wants to teach through this section. The power of devotional service. So powerful. Further down he says, therefore the illusion of Maya is at once dissipated as soon as one's full energy is converted in the service of the Lord instead of in sense enjoyment. And from the personal example of Sri Narad Muni in his previous births, it is clear that the service of the Lord begins with the service of the Lord's bona fide servants. And the Lord says that the service of his servants is greater than his personal service. Service of the devotee is more valuable than service of the Lord. We discussed these points before. Further down he writes, by service of the bona fide spiritual master, the Lord consents to reveal himself in proportion to the service rendered. In proportion to the service rendered. Ye yathamam prapati. So, to the degree one renders service, to that degree Krishna reveals himself. And then what happens? The whole cosmic creation becomes at once identical with the Lord as soon as service in relation with the Lord is rendered under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. The expert spiritual master knows the art of utilizing everything to glorify the Lord, and therefore under his guidance the whole world can be turned into the spiritual abodes by the divine grace of the Lord's servants. So by serving the bona fide devotees who have this vision, who can see everything in relation to the Lord, by serving them, then one also gets the same realization. That how the entire world is related to the Lord and can be used in his service. Okay? Text 24.
What is the meaning of this line? Once identical with the Lord, the whole cosmic creation becomes.
Nothing is separate from the Lord. Why? Everything is what?
Lord's energy.
Yes, Lord's energy. And we have discussed Shakti, Shaktivati or Abheda. There is no difference between Shakti and Shaktiman.
As soon as the service is relation with the Lord is ended under guidance of the spiritual master.
Correct.
So then it becomes.
Yes, so when one renders service, one gets purified. When one gets purified, one gets the realization. Then one can see everything in relation to the Lord. Then one can see everything as the Lord Shakti. And then there's no difference between Shakti and Shaktiman. But in order for this to happen, some pre-qualifications are required. So that he's telling in the next verse. ते मय्यपेथा किल चापले अर्पके दान्ते धृतक्रीडनके अनुवर्तिनि चक्रु कृपां यद्यपि तुल्यदर्शनः शुश्रूषमाणे मुनयो अल्पभाषिणी. Although they were impartial by nature, those followers of the Vedanta blessed me with their causeless mercy. As far as I was concerned, I was self-controlled, I had no attachment for sports, even though I was a boy. In addition, I was not naughty, and I did not speak more than required. Okay, read the purport.
In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, all the Vedas are searching after me. Lord Sri Chaitanya says that in the Vedas, the subject matters are only three, namely, establish the relation of the living entities with the personality of Godhead, perform the relative duties in devotional service, and thus achieve the ultimate goal, back to Godhead. As such, Vedanta Vadis or the followers of the Vedanta indicate the pure devotees of the personality of Godhead. Such Vedanta Vadis or the Bhakti Vedantas are impartial in distributing the transcendental knowledge of devotional service. To them, no one is enemy or friend. No one is educated or uneducated. No one is especially favorable and no one is unfavorable. The Bhakti Vedantas see that the people in general are wasting time in false sensuous things. Their business is to get the ignorant mass of people to re-establish the lost relationship with the personality of Godhead. By such endeavor, even the most forgotten soul is roused up to the sense of spiritual life, and thus, being initiated by the Bhakti Vedantas, the people in general gradually progress on the path of transcendental realization. So the Vedanta Vadis initiated the boy even before he became self-controlled and was detached from childish sporting, etc. But before the initiation, the boy, become more and more advanced in discipline, which is very essential for one who wishes to make progress in the line. In the system of Varnashram Dharma, which is the beginning of actual human life, a small boy after 5 years of age are sent to become brahmachari at the Guru's ashram, where these things
Sorry.
Our system.
which is the beginning of actual human life. Small boy after 5 years of age are sent to become brahmacharis at the Guru's ashram, where these things are systematically taught to every boy. Be he a king's son or the son of an ordinary citizen, the training was compulsory not only to create good citizens of the state but also to prepare the boy's future life for spiritual realization. The responsible life of sense enjoyment was unknown to the children of the followers of the Varnashrama system. A boy was even injected with spiritual acumen before
being placed.
Being placed. Before he placed that. Before being placed.
Future life for spiritual realization. The responsible life of sense enjoyment was unknown to the child of the follower of the Varnashram system. The boy was even injected with spiritual acumen before being placed by the father in the womb of the mother. Both the father and the mother were responsible for the boy's success in being liberated from the material bondage. That is the process of successful family planning. It is to beget children for complete perfection. Without being self-controlled, without being disciplined, and without being fully obedient, no one can become successful in following the instruction of the spiritual master. And without doing so, no one is able to go back to God.
Okay, so so here how many qualifications of Narad Muni are being mentioned? Four. Which are they?
Self-control, no attachment to sport,
Attachment to sports, not naughty.
not
Okay, let's see from the verse.
Sushru.
First is Dante, control the senses. Then second is Adrita Kridanake, without being accustomed to sporting habits. Third is Anuvartini, obedient. Then yes, Alpavashini. What was that?
Sushrushani. Sushrushani.
Shushmane, that is unto the faithful. Okay. So it shows that the Bhaktivedantas, they give mercy to those who are faithful. Okay, we can take that also. And then finally Alpavashini. Okay. So now we are going to discuss on each of these qualities. So all of you will have to give some speeches on each of these qualities. Ex-tempo speech. So would you like to volunteer or we should call upon someone? Okay, nobody's saying it. Okay, the first one is Dante, sense control. Okay, somebody come here and speak for 2-3 minutes on the sense control. Or we'll go according to alphabetical order. Okay, you are ready? Please come. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hmm.
So the quality of a disciple, the follower of Vedanta, is the sense control. And nectar of instruction also we see the sense control is very required.
Okay, I'll give you for everyone I'll give you a few points on which to speak. So first you say, so first thing is you explain the quality, what is that quality? Second point is importance of the quality, why to develop the quality. And third point is how to develop the quality. Knowledge, skills and values. How many of you have done PTC? Not many. Okay, knowledge, skills and values. You know knowledge, skills and values. Speak.
So according to the definition of sense control, Prabhupada also gives many purports and lectures. Sense control means, like for example, we have the senses, eyes to see, speaking and smelling and legs and many other senses. The controlling, see, somebody will think that we just keep it quiet, doing nothing. It's not like the controlling means mainly the engaging service of the Lord. So that is the mean for the bhakti, the real focus on the sense control. So this is the part of introduction of the sense control. And what is the important of this? Because as the devotees, unless we engage the senses in the Krishna service, the Rishikesha Sevanam, that is not called as the bhakti first of all. So we need some engagements as the senses are active. So we need to engage in the service of the Lord for developing our loving services to Him. So we have different processes, Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So many activities are given for all our senses to engage in the Krishna service. So finally, how we to develop the skills? We have many facilities are given by Prabhupada in the form of morning program where our all engaged senses are engaged, and preaching engagements and many other physical services, and physically, mentally we can engage in the service of the Lord. So this is the importance of sense control in serving the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Haribo! Good, you're a good preacher, huh? Okay, so now to add to this, so when any of the senses is not used in Krishna service, what is it compared to? So somebody speak on this. There's a whole list given in the second canto, third chapter. When any of the senses is not used in Krishna service, what is it compared to? Yes, Aditya, run from. Here, take. हाँ यहाँ जाओ नहीं यहाँ जाओ अरे वो पीछे मत दो भाई वो आगे दो
So eyes are compared to the peacocks.
हाँ उनको बताओ
Eyes are compared to the peacocks.
yes
Eyes are there.
the plumes of the peacock it looks like eye in the center
And ears are compared to the snake's hole.
snake holes correct
Tongue is compared to mendak.
mender correct frog stroking you can explain a little bit each one of them
Yeah. So like eyes are the plumes of the peacock. That
Yeah,
is
that.
beautiful, but that is of no use. It can avail no facility to the peacock. Similarly, our eyes, the use of the eyes is to have the darshan of the Lord. But instead of having darshan of the Lord, if we have darshan of other things other than the Lord, then that is of no use to us. Rather, it will degrade us. Secondly, ears, when we talk about, then ears, when they hear the glories of the Lord, then they are at best use of this faculty. But if we don't use it, then whatever other elements that we hear about, other than the glories of the Lord and the devotional services that we hear about, so that very function of the ear will degrade the person consciousness. So it's like a snake entering in the ears and it will kill us.
no not exactly so just like the snake hole is useless what is the use of the snake hole just a hole in the ground no use so similarly there's also just a hole useless then tongue
The tongue, so jiva, dardu,
asati
asati. So like frog, when the rainy season is there, so it starts croaking, but it is all useless talk. So the cow, the serpent hear that sound, and because he cannot hear, just by hearing he can, because it is dark, so he cannot see. So by hearing, the snake approaches the frog and directly gallops it. Similarly, if our tongue is used in talking not related something to the Krishna, then Kal will gallop us.
okay
And the nose, anybody knows?
everybody knows the nose but nobody knows what is coming okay that is not there
And the hand, like Maharaj Amrish, he used his
नहीं वो एग्जाम्पल हो गया एनालॉजी क्या है hands not used in the Lord's service are compared to the hands of a dead body. So even though the hands of a dead body may be beautifully decorated with bangles and all that, what is the use? Useless. So similarly, hands not used in Lord's service compared to the hands of dead body. Okay, next.
head. So the head is meant for bowing down before the Lord, and the dust of the devotees is like the decoration on the head of the person. But it is not used in that, then
Then what?
anybody knows?
Then what? Chaitanya Prabhu, what?
That grows there in
Somebody?
the field.
Everybody is speaking, nobody can understand. What you're saying?
In the field, the farmers use that
Scarecrow.
dummy model to scare.
No, वो speculation. और Okay, that's slightly different, not in this context. Somebody is saying something. It's compared to a turban. A big turban on the head. If there is a big turban on the head, what will happen? If the person is sinking in the ocean, the turban will only help him to sink faster. So similarly, if the head is not used for bowing down, it will only help him to sink in the ocean of the cycle of birth and death. Bhavasagar. Leg.
So leg are to be used
Hmm.
for going to the pilgrim.
Temple.
And if not, then it will be used to go for pub and other places.
So what is it compared to?
So what it is compared to?
So who has legs which cannot move?
Snake.
Trees. So legs are compared to tree trunks if not used in Lord's service. And the heart that does not melt
Pashmashara.
is compared to
Steel.
steel framed hearts. Yes. Good. Thank you very much. Hari Om. Okay, now we have one more aspect. So, when any of these senses are not controlled, then it is compared to something. Each one of them is compared to something. Yes, Chaitanya, आगे. When any of the senses is used for sense gratification.
So the comparison is given of how each sense will lead to a complete devouring or
Disaster.
Disaster.
Hmm.
Disaster. So the first is eyes.
Hmm.
So we have firefly. Because just one sense is so uncontrolled, so it ends up in fire. Because being attracted to the fire.
Correct. The moths
Moths.
that get attracted to the fire and get burnt. Hmm.
Second is ears.
Yes.
So we have deer. Deer can run faster than whatever his enemy, be it a tiger or anything. It can save himself. But the same deer, how the hunter catches is
Music.
by music. So it puts some nice sound or plays flute, and when he comes near, he's captured. Third is tongue. So fish. The example is fish. So fish has plenty of in his surrounding. There's plenty of food to eat, but still just to like out of curiosity or because of to taste that bit, so the fisherman catches him and he loses his life. Skin, for skin, the example comes of elephant. So how he is captured? Elephant who can literally like has the strength of hundreds and thousands of human beings, but he ends up being controlled by 6 feet man with just a small using some fears. So how he captures is the she elephant is trained in such a way that he's given the touch and he gets infatuated and he runs behind it, and arrangement is made in such a way that he ends up in a ditch. What is that?
Nose.
So the example comes up bee bumblebee. So it has the strength of like piercing through the dull or wood, but the same because being attracted by the smell of lotus, it ends up there, and because of so much nice fragrance, it doesn't comes out, and as the sun sets, the lotus winds up and closes, and it ends up there. Five.
Good, thank you very much. Hari Om. Good, all expert preachers, huh? Very nice. Okay. Now, what's the next quality? Adrita Kridaniki, without being accustomed to sporting habits. Somebody speak on this. unnecessary sports, recreation. Or as Prabhupada says, no attachment for sports. Bolo, bolo. सबको लेक्चर देना पड़ेगा आज नहीं तो कल. No. See, if you think of those 3 points, it's very easy to speak on any topic. Knowledge, skills, values. What, why, how. Okay, we are counting 5. If nobody comes, then we are taking the attendance sheet. Attendance sheet दे दो भाई, कहाँ है? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right time you take. So, the first name on the list is Aditya Ramprabhu, but your turn is already done. So the next on the list is Advait Karuna Prabhu. आजाओ आजाओ. चिंता मत करो, मार्क्स नहीं है इसके लिए. प्रैक्टिस है, अच्छा प्रैक्टिस है. 2 शब्द बोलो. हाँ सब आ जाए, यहाँ आ जाओ बस. हाँ माइक ले लो, माइक पकड़ने से सब आ जाए. हाँ, attachment to sports. Attachment to sports. How? So, what is the? Why one should not be attached to sports?
Like if somebody attached to the sporting spirit, then maybe he will not be that much serious about spiritual subject matter, and he will be like on that thing only. Just like we saw, like how the students nowadays, so they are mostly not inclined too much to the spiritual knowledge, but they are mostly about IPL and other different competitions, swimming competitions, basketball gamings, and all these things like that, movies. So all this comes in sports. So if we are too much in that thing, then like these are spiritual, what we can say that spiritual inclination goes away. That's why we should not too much attach to the sports.
What else will happen?
Some devotees sometimes they say it is positive also, because physically health also maintains. But actually it may increase the mode of passion also inside us, because for sporting need a lot of passion to play.
Was that? No?
In Talasari Farmhouse, the name of team building is the sports.
Good. Oh yeah? Good. Haribo. So good. See, you spoke so much. Anybody wants to add some points? Huh?
Controllership mentality and competitive mentality increases, and it also leads one to develop envious nature between the two parties.
Okay. Yes, that's possible.
Life is short, lot of time is
Yes, lot of time is wasted. Waste of time. So others while playing only one may fall. So lot of time waste.
This is one of the like eating, meeting, sleeping, and depending. Most of the focus is materialistic way.
What?
Defending.
Defending.
Things out of this for eating, meeting, sleeping, and defending. It's a defending.
Sports comes in defending.
Like generally, suppose let's say someone is world champion and then defending world champion, they compete for the
Okay, compete for the country.
whole the afterwards what happened that it ended in some their reputation.
Okay.
We totally lose the purpose of life.
Huh?
Being diverted, we may totally lose the purpose of life.
Yes, may lose the purpose of life, could get diverted.
Sports comes in gambling also because
Ah.
politics are there, betting is there.
Correct. Sports can come in gambling also, correct.
Probably at that time there was no other media recreation, so only sports is mentioned, but it can today mean internet, another.
Yeah, all that. Yeah, of course, all that comes under the category of sports.
It
Correct.
takes a lot of energy and time.
Yes. One could get totally deviated from Krishna consciousness, as we are seeing sometimes these days. So much deviation, distraction. Huh?
In the Mahabharata,
Huh?
there was a player for
Dice.
gambling match,
Huh?
and even Krishna encourages
Uh-huh.
to kill Jarasandha.
Huh?
You know, he's
Correct.
encouraged.
Correct. So what's the point? Comment. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, next is hold on. Anuvartini, obedience. Alia.
Hare Krishna. It is said obedient is in the following the instructions of spiritual master. It is said in Bible. Only we
Are we sure with Bible?
Bring a quote. Only humble and meek people can enter into the kingdom of the God. So this is one of the basic qualification to advance in spiritual life. That is obedience or submissive to the instructions of to the spiritual path. If somebody disobey the orders of the spiritual master, then he doesn't have any growth in the spiritual life. It is very important for seekers of spiritual life to practice this and inculcate these values in one's life. We also experience if somebody is disobedient, it is very, very difficult to manage under us. Whoever is there under us, it is very difficult to manage them disobedient. That becomes a very struggle, very difficult thing for the spiritual master. When we be there in that position and think that we understand the struggle of the spiritual master, how he faces that, how difficult it is to manage the student or disciple. So there are so many incidents which happen in Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Many incidents we can quote in this regard. Being obedient is very, very important.
कुछ तो examples बताओ.
Today we heard from Shivadan Prabhu, from Madhavendra Puri, how obedient disciple gets the Krishna Prema. Disobedient disciple gets the curse, but in other way. It is a boon only, but in a different way. And it is from Chaitanya Charitamrita how Madhavendra Puri deals with his disciples. We see in the Ramayana also, Ravan heard these instructions even from his guru, from his brother, not to misuse his powers on Mother Sita, but because he disobeyed, he spoiled whole his character and life, even in terms of Duryodhana. Many people suggested him, but they disobeyed.
Okay, how to develop the quality?
How to develop this quality?
Hmm.
So, if we are simple in our practice, like children's, when they are in the young age, we should, from the childhood only, we should cultivate this habit of being obedient. Because as soon as we grow up, we get a lot of multiple options in front of us. So these qualities should be nourished from the beginning, as Prahlad Maharaj says.
If it has not been, if one has not developed the quality from childhood, then what to do?
No. This quality comes, being obedient is not all of a sudden it comes from the Purva Vasanas also. From the past life also it comes. It is said, different definition of atheist and theist. Theist definition is one who obeys the Vedas. One who doesn't obey the Vedas is an atheist. So, when we read these scriptures, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, we see some characters who obeyed and got success in their life. When we read those stories and understand the importance, then we feel encouraged, inspired to follow those qualities. But unfortunately, in the world, we take inspiration of those who disobey and cultivate that disobedient quality. So cultivation, in terms of cultivation, we should hear such great personality stories and inspire.
Okay, thank you very much. Any additions?
Just like Pandavas, most of the time, Pandava always follow the instruction. In case of Draupadi also they follow the instruction of Mother. Then so many other things are they follow the instruction of Dhritarashtra. But in the other hand, Duryodhana, most of the time he disobeyed.
Okay, that's another example. Okay, fine. Any significant points? How to develop?
If there is a goal, then you can develop the obedient goal in life.
Okay, yes, that's a good point. If one has a goal, then in order to achieve the goal, then one will be ready to do anything. Yes. Okay, good. Next is what? Okay, we'll take the last one. Alpabhashini. Alpabhashini. He's wondering what's happening. बोलो हाँ हाँ जाओ गोपाल
In the devotees or Vaishnava circles, it is always advised and very important to speak as per the requirement. Because we see that in any people who are successful, and who are into a good objective, who have good objective, always maintain this attitude. And it's also very important as as we find there are less prajalpas and less arguments which take place if we follow this quality. And I personally see, I don't have this quality, but people whom I really adore and respect, when they have this quality, I feel that I should cultivate so that I can maintain my sadhana very nicely and avoid prajalpa.
How?
How to cultivate?
Mm.
Okay. By good association of devotees, by maintaining a proper service attitude, sadhana, and keeping up to the point where we also said in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's book, it is mentioned that one who is Vaishnava, one who's Vaishnava must always see that one who can control the jiva, because everything takes place through jiva. It is the prime cause of all auspicious and inauspicious qualities. So very important to maintain this attitude of bliss.
Rivo. Okay, fine. So we already had a discussion on Prajalpa. But okay, so these were the qualities of Narad Muni, and Srila Prabhupada is summarizing all of them under this, in this beautiful statement at the end. Without being self-controlled, without being disciplined, and without being fully obedient, no one can become successful in following the instructions of the spiritual master, and without doing so, no one is able to go back to Godhead. So Prabhupada, in many lectures, he would say, disciple means discipline. Okay, so disciple means there must be discipline, otherwise there's no point in being a disciple. And Srila Prabhupada also often quoted, obedience is the first law of discipline. Obedience is the first law of discipline. So when we talk of discipline, then there has to be obedience. And I'm sure most of you may know that story of those three disciples of, who's that? Dhaumya Rishi, yes, Dhaumya Rishi. Who? Aruni, Veda and Upamanyu. So, you know that story. Okay. So, especially for brahmacharis, very important qualities. Brahmachari Gurukule Vasandanto Gurorhitam Acharan Daswan Nicha Guru Sudruda Saurudha. So Nichvan means what? Proper translates as? Yes, like a slave. Nobody likes to be slave, correct? Anybody likes? Nobody likes. But then that's what is expected. To be simply like a slave. So this is the ideal brahmachari training. Prabhupada is talking about here, training in the Guru's ashram, where these things are systematically taught to boys, be they king's sons or sons of ordinary citizens. The training was compulsory, not only to create good citizens of the state, but also to prepare the boy's future life for spiritual realization. And this is another beautiful statement. The irresponsible life of sense enjoyment was unknown to the children of the followers of the Varnashram system. Irresponsible life of sense enjoyment was unknown. Now that's the only thing that's known. Sense enjoyments. So you see what a big contrast between the Vedic times and the current times. So very difficult nowadays. No training, then. But then the point is that, so even though one is coming to the brahmachari ashram at 25 years, 30 years, but still the same principles of training are required. The more one follows those principles, then the more it will be easier to progress in spiritual life. So definitely it is more difficult because one already has passed 20-25 years of materialistic life and conditioning and materialistic training, and it's totally contrary to spiritual life. So definitely it's difficult in the current age, but still one has to sincerely accept the training. If one doesn't accept the training, then further progress becomes more difficult. So at least in the initial years, when one comes to Krishna consciousness, one must follow these principles that are mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Narad Muni is elaborately describing to Yudhishthira Maharaj, 7th canto, various principles of each of the ashrams. Brahmacharya ashram also is elaborately describing various principles. So those principles, we should try to imbibe those principles, even though we may not have had a previous training, but at least when we come, in the initial years, if we try to imbibe those principles, then later it will become easier. Otherwise, initial years, if one does not imbibe those principles, then later it becomes even more difficult. So earlier the better. So earlier the better. Earlier one is trained, one wants to be trained, one gets trained. It's all the more better for oneself. So in the initial years, if one gets used to a irresponsible lifestyle, unregulated lifestyle, indisciplined lifestyle, if one gets used to all these things, then after 5-10 years, Prabhupada gives the example of green bamboo and old bamboo. So one dried bamboo. Once one becomes dried bamboo, finished. Nothing can be done. Becomes very difficult to change. So at least in the initial years, so one can be flexible. Then it's good that we accept the right training, accept the right sanskaras initially itself. Then once those sanskaras fit in, then that will continue if we are in the right association. But initially only if we don't take the right training, initially only we become irresponsible, then later on it becomes difficult. Who's the loser? Who? I. I become the loser, nobody else. Please remember this point. If I don't practice nicely, be sure nobody else is the loser. I am the only loser. Nobody else loses. The world goes on. Okay. So these these verses are also showing the various stages of bhakti. Okay. So here, now Prabhupada writes another point in this purport. So the Vedantavadis initiated the boy even before he became self-controlled and was detached from childish sporting, etc. But before the initiation, he, the boy, became more and more advanced in discipline, which is very essential for one who wishes to make progress in the line. Okay, so even before he was initiated, he was advancing in discipline. But then after his initiation, then he became even more disciplined. So therefore, these are the initial stages of Adho Shraddha. So therefore, here that word Shushrushamani, Prabhupada translating is unto the faithful. So it indicates Adho Shraddha. So there's Adho Shraddha, there's Sadhu Sang, then some Bhajana Kriya also. So these stages are included in this verse. Of course, the next verse is more Bhajana Kriya. But then both these verses are essentially talking about Sadhu Sang and Bhajana Kriya. Okay, verse number 25. Uchishtalepaan anumodito dvijay sakrit smapunje tadapasta kilvishaha evam pravrittasya vishuddha chetasas taddharma evatma ruchi prajayate. Once only, by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by so doing, all my sins were at once eradicated. Thus being engaged, I became purified in heart, and at that time the very nature of the transcendentalists became attractive to me. Purport. Okay, before you read, let's read something from here on discipline. Prabhupada's quote.
So the more we become disciplined, the more we become advanced. This is the only qualification that Narada Muni was disciplined. So much disciplined that he is a small boy, still he would not talk anything nonsense. He was so disciplined, so the more we become disciplined, as it is stated in the Shastras, Ustahad, Dharyat, Nishchyat, Tat Karma, Pravartanat. These are disciplines. The more we become advanced, and naturally we get the mercy of the spiritual master and Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.
So the more one becomes disciplined, the more one becomes advanced, then naturally one gets the mercy of spiritual master. So that's how one makes progress. Okay, please read the purport.
Once, only by the permission, I took the remnants of the food, and by so doing, all my sins were at once eradicated. Thus, being engaged, I became purified in heart, and at that time, the very nature of the transcendentalist became attractive to me. Pure devotion is as much infectious in a good sense as infectious diseases. A pure devotee is cleared from all kinds of sins. The personality of Godhead is the purest entity, and unless one is equally pure from the infection of material qualities, one cannot become a pure devotee of the Lord. The Bhaktivedantas, as above mentioned, were pure devotees, and the boy became infected with the qualities of purity by their association, and by eating once the remnants of the foodstuff taken by them. Such remnants may be taken even without permission of the pure devotees. There are sometimes pseudo devotees, and one should be very much cautious about them. There are many things which hinder one from entering devotional service, but by the association of pure devotees, all these obstacles are removed. The neophyte devotee becomes practically enriched with the transcendental qualities of pure devotee, which means attraction for the personality of Godhead's name, fame, qualities, pastimes, etc. Infection of the qualities of the pure devotee means to imbibe the taste of pure devotion always in the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. This transcendental taste at once makes all material things distasteful. Therefore, a pure devotee is not at all attracted by material activities. After the elimination of all sins or obstacles on the path of devotional services, one can become attracted. One can have steadiness, one can have perfect taste. One can have transcendental emotions, and at last one can be situated on the place of loving service of the Lord. All these stages develop by the association of pure devotees, and that is the purport of this stanza.
So we already discussed many of these points when we were discussing the second chapter. We know the series of verses. Which verses? Talking about the different stages. So verse number 16. Shushushoshodnanasya. 16 to 21. So the series of verses. So similar these. So here also. So Vishwanath Thakur says in this verse there are 5 stages. So we know he gave 14 stages. Remember? 14 stages. So in those 14 stages, he says these are 5 stages. So first is Bhajaneshu Spriha. So Bhajaneshu Spriha is basically the desire for worship. Desire for worship, which is equivalent to Bhajana Kriya. So even before Bhajana Kriya, there is a desire for Bhajan. So that's what he says, Bhajaneshu Spriha. Then there is Bhakti, then Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi. So he says this verse has these 5 stages. Bhajaneshu Spriha, Bhakti, Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi. So you can see here, Prabhupada is especially speaking about the effect of association. By the association of pure devotees, all obstacles are removed. The neophyte devotee becomes practically enriched with the transcendental qualities of the pure devotee, which means attraction for the personality of God's name, fame, quality, pastimes. So this attraction will increase because one develops the same qualities as the pure devotee. So that's the benefit of association. And I think so we discussed many times on association. So how do we associate? By service.
By hearing from.
By hearing. Yes, Krishna Katha. So in all these ways, when we associate, then we develop their qualities. As Prabhupada says, it's infectious. Enthusiasm is infectious, laziness also is infectious. So ultimately, with whomever we associate, we will get their qualities. Therefore, when we associate with those who have a great taste for Krishna consciousness, by associating with them, then we also can get a similar taste. And that's what this boy got because of associating, because of serving these Bhakti Vedantas. So first of all, he became purified, apasta kilbishaha. He became purified and then he developed all of their qualities. Okay, one more verse we'll do before a break. Tatranvaham Krishna Katha Pragayatam Anugrahena Shravam Manoharam Shraddhaya me anupadam vishrinvat Priya Shravasyangamama Bhavadruchi. O Vyasadeva, in that association and by the mercy of those great Vedantas, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna, and thus listening attentively, my taste for hearing of the personality of Godhead increased at every step. So here in this verse, the word Shraddhaya, so although Shraddha has already been covered, so therefore according to Vishnu Thakur in this verse, Shraddhaya means Asakti. So in the previous verse, Ruchi was covered, till Ruchi. So here Shraddhaya means Asakti and Ruchi means Rati or Bhava. So Prabhupada writes that instead of wasting time, one can get spiritual success by turning his attention to the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. By hearing the narrations of the pastimes of the Lord, one contacts directly the personality of Godhead, and as explained before, by hearing about the personality of Godhead from within, all accumulated sins of the mundane creature are cleared. So that has already been discussed. Nashtapraya Shabhatrishna. Thus being cleared of all sins, the hearer gradually becomes liberated from mundane association and becomes attracted to the features of the Lord's. The whole idea is that simply by hearing about the Lord's pastimes, one can become one of the associates of the Lord. And therefore Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, this process of hearing in the association of devotees is especially recommended in this age of Kali. So that is what we are doing, hearing in the association of devotees. Okay, so this is what is recommended in Kali Yuga especially, because in Kali Yuga it's very difficult to do things alone, especially spiritual activities. So therefore, in association, the association is emphasized. Then in association, then even though one may be feeling a little unenthusiastic, especially after a big feast, then at least by seeing others, or at least some lok lajja, then one will somehow try to be attentive. So that's how association helps. So therefore, and then of course so much of discussion, and then so we saw so many devotees came forward and spoke so many wonderful things. So then so much of discussion takes place, churning of the subject matter. So therefore association always helps. Otherwise we all have experience after this big feast, if we were sitting in our rooms with the Bhagavatam, so everyone knows what would happen. Very soon the Bhagavatam and the devotee both will be on the bed. Yes, in full samadhi. Okay, fine. So we'll take a break. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.